How's it going, friends and family of the internet? Welcome to the Real AF TV podcast show about fishing and random takes from the land of 10,000 lakes. I'm one of your hosts, Josh LaBaw.
And I'm the other host, Tim Wagner.
Tim,
what's up?
What is up? We were just talking about Jello shots as a kid.
Yeah,
before
kind of.
If you're curious.
Yeah. But not the shots, man. I don't know if I'm the only one out there that's like that, but when we had stomach aches when we were a kid, my mom would just make the Kool-Aid. Like, you know how you make it before you put it in the fridge?
Before you put in the sweet molds?
Yeah, but then you just pour that in a cup and hand it to you. And then you drink
Kool-Aid before it got hard.
Jello juice. I don't know what you call it. Never called it nothing. It was just like, yeah, like looking for a reason to drink that stuff. Oh, I think my tummy hurts.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, if this is your first episode, then you are probably a little bit surprised. Like, what is this? What was that? Why are you talking about Jello shots? That's because we go off sometimes and we just spin off on a different thing. But this is the show about fishing and random takes. This episode 57, we are going to talk about spinning reels, and we are going to, in the random take, talk about indie art, indie, staying indie, being indie, whatever you want to say. Pretty much, you'll see. It's about like independent creation is what it's really about. That's what it's going to get into.
Word. But I'm gonna cut you off real quick because you're talking about indie, and also just because Josh was giving the disclaimer at the front. If you're new here, don't you judge us, new people. I'd say whatever I want. When we come in, we just start talking about whatever. It is a show about fishing and random takes from the land. I messed that up really bad. But it's also whatever that was and whatever this is. And I do what I want. And we will talk about whatever is on our mind. And when you said indie, it reminded me of NASCAR, which aren't the same thing. I'm not a NASCAR fan, but did you see, because we're about to get into the fishing news, I'm sure, right? That's where this is going.
Yeah,
so just talking about
it off with the fishing news and then get into the fishing topic.
Yeah. So talking about news though, real quick.
Okay.
Because we are video game fans. If you are new to this too, if you don't know, we both like video games. Did you see the NASCAR guy that legitimately finished the race with like the old school Gran Turismo glitch of like the circle track where you're like going real fast and you just get against the wall?
Oh,
well, not the wheelie, but he's just like, you just get against the wall and then you make that turn way faster than you should be able to.
Yeah, because the physics on the wall weren't right. Automodelista did that. Like Automodelista game was broken because of that. There was like that first cell shaded game. Like the game was just flat out broke because you could just ride the wall.
Yeah. So the dude did that in the real life because it was like the final lap. And he needed to like qualify for whatever next race. And he was like 5 spots behind. And he ended up passing like 5 or 6 people just riding the wall in the last turn. It worked, dude.
He was literally grinding up against the wall.
Yeah, it worked. He like flew around there like full speed and like passed a bunch of people on the last turn.
No way, dude.
Yeah. I know that.
You had to have been a video game kid, right? Like
that's what I thought. I saw it and I'm just like, oh, dude, that's the Gran Turismo glitch. Like, because I remember like I would go. I remember going to school. Like they would have the endurance races on some of the old school games, and they'd be like, you'd have to race for like multiple hours. And I'd just like put something heavy on the X button and get like the Pikes Peak, a Scudo, Suzuki, like 1,000 horsepower.
Yep.
That thing just balls to the walls. You didn't have to turn it. Just let it loop. It's a circle track. You just put something heavy on it, and then you come home and you're like, you got first place. And like, yes. Every
Yeah,
once
I
in a
did.
while, it'd screw up and your car's just like balls out, like up against the wall.
Oh, just stuck in the corner.
something ha- something happened. It bumped another car or something where it's not doing the
Right,
circle like it's supposed to anymore.
right.
But it worked, and then he pulled it off in real life. I was like,
I can't
damn.
believe that, dude.
I
That
know
is
when I
so
saw
sick.
it, it was mind blowing. So I just had to throw that out there. It's been, it's just been sitting there in my brain since I saw it. And you said
Yeah,
Indy, and I'm like, oh, NASCAR, like just racing. Like I don't
right. Just
like.
racing came to your mind.
Mhm.
That's so good, dude. I'm gonna have to look that up now because that's just beautiful. I didn't even have to look it up. That was enough. It was perfect. I can picture that.
It's crazy to see that it works. Like he
Right,
definitely messed up his car. Like that whole
right,
side is messed up. But I
right,
don't know what they pay for a shell. He probably doesn't even care. He's like, whatever.
right.
Two
Give it a go.
tires, axle, side of the car. Like it's either this or nothing.
Right. So good.
Oh man.
Okay, let's get into the fishing news. We'll keep it a shorter one, uh, because of that extra news that was tacked on top there, which I totally
Extra
loved, by the way.
breaking. Beep 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 beep.
But this is more or less like a PSA wrapped up in news format. Check them regs before you hit the ice.
Oh,
It's
for sure.
November up here. Ice season's coming. And yeah, that means sometimes there's adjustments. So don't you forget to get out there, or don't you forget to check those regs before you get out there.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota specifically had an adjustment. Upper Red Lake walleye limit. They had to lower it. They had
Oh,
4
really?
last year. Yep, they had 4 last year. But
Mm-hmm.
then effective November 1st, so not long after the podcast drops here, it's already been in effect that they lowered it. So even if you're out there now, right? I know I said on the ice, but that's because it's just intended for ice season, you know.
Right.
But that's the thing. Yeah, Upper Red Lake, they had to lower the walleye limit. There's 3 bag limit with only one walleye longer than 17 inches. Oh, I gotta do
That's crazy. Only one longer than 17.
yeah.
So you're just like trying to get just 15, like when you like 15 inches, two 15 inches and one bigger. I suppose it's not too bad. You're out there with like 3 people.
Yeah. Right.
Three,
Yeah.
three a
I mean,
person
like
is plenty.
you could definitely, yeah, make enough out of that for one person, but when you look at the state limit is like the state blanket, just
Yeah,
generally speaking is 6.
yeah,
It's like, "Oh,
right.
just one of those things, Real AFTV, about teaching, about keeping you sharp, about
For
learning
sure.
about the fishes." And that's one thing that we always say. Check those
Yeah,
regs. Different bodies
check
of
them.
water, different things. It's not always there's a blanket law. This is not just true in Minnesota. So that's why,
Yeah,
wherever you're listening, this is not just a Minnesota thing. This is definitely like conservation departments
right.
do this stuff. This is
Yeah,
because of a specific study on Upper Red Lake where there's plenty of smaller fish and they want right at that, 17 mark. They're like, yeah, there's plenty of fish in that, range, but they want to get the big breeders going again.
yep, yep,
Like that was it.
yep. Keep the big fish out there and make
Yep.
sure that, like, depending on, we talked about it a couple of episodes, like, know the laws as far as like how many rods and reels you can have too, because ice stuff changes.
Right.
And in Minnesota, we go from like 1 in the summer to you can have 2 rods in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming that the other states are probably quite a bit more, because especially like down south doesn't have ice fishing, but Wisconsin, you can have
Mm-hmm.
2 rods during the summer. So I don't know what their rules are, but
Oh,
just know that,
right.
like, if you're coming over to Minnesota or you're coming to a different state, like, know what you can get away with. Don't just assume that
Right.
what you can do in your state is what you can do here, or what the rules are and
Right.
stuff. Like,
Good point. Good point.
I see some videos online too where like different countries have like rigs where there's like multiple hooks on the same deal, and then they're pulling up like 5 fishes at one time.
Right. Yeah.
From what I know, that's not legal in Minnesota. I don't know if you can pull that off in another state, but you cannot do that kind of stuff. You can have multiple hooks on one lure. Like obviously a jig and wrap is like a hook in the front, a hook in the back, and a treble hook in the middle. So
but
technically,
still one piece of bait.
It's just one piece. But if you have a bunch of hooks on one line, that is a no-go. So don't just sit there watching Instagram and go, "Oh, that'd be. Oh, I wonder if I can get away with that." Because
I should go try that.
Yeah, I've even commented on that, like on, I think like Mystery Tackle Box had like a thing on Instagram that was like, "Would you guys throw this?" And I can't remember exactly what it was, and I was like, "Not in Minnesota. That's not legal here." Like just don't be telling everybody to go throw this bait, because that's not gonna fly where I live.
Right. Good point. Good point. All right. Well, let's do some housekeeping here in between the news. I'll just call it the general news here. and the fishing topic, which again, spinning reels. What is a spinning reel? That's what we're going to get into. But anyways, housekeeping. This podcast is brought to you by Monster Bass and patreon.com/realaftv. Monster Bass and Patreon. We'll talk about that shit later, especially when we get into the random take about indie stuff. Right, Tim?
Yo, damn it.
Then don't forget, it's every other week podcast. If you're new to the podcast, that is how we do it. We do bi-weekly. If you're here this time and you look back and you go, you had a podcast last week. Well, that was a holiday special. We had to drop Halloween on Halloween. We are Halloweeners. Yep. We had to do
Halloweeners.
Go to realaf.tv/contact. Give us feedback on the podcast. We do see those. That's basically emailing us feedback. And there are not our DMs are open to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Talk with us. We're out there. And comments on YouTube. We are on YouTube. If you are only listening to this in the MP3 format, we are on YouTube, Real AF TV, Real like fish and reel. You'll be able to find us. Just put that in the search bar. And iTunes and Spotify reviews. Big deal. They're a big deal out there for the algorithm. We appreciate that bump. Fist bump to anybody who's bumping us with the review.
Yeah. And I apologize if anybody heard that phone noise. I don't know if anybody caught that. If you're watching that, you probably can't see it. But I literally like had a moment of where I went, oh, and then I reached for my phone to turn it down to make sure I turn my alerts off. And as I'm doing it, it goes boom. And that's why I went, damn it. Like I just missed it. I was right there. Like, oh, I didn't turn it off. I can't believe it didn't go off until the moment I'm hitting the volume button.
Isn't that weird how that happens?
Dude.
God, it's freaking weird.
Crazy. Your phone just knows.
I know. It seriously does. So, Tim, let's get into fishing reels, I guess.
Yeah.
Not fishing reels, spinning reels, right? That's what I really meant. And this is an example of our feedback, what I just talked about in housekeeping, right? You had that sweet fucking pumpkin that you made. You had two pumpkins that you made with the Real AF TV logo on it. And
yes,
blasted them all over. I was showing people over the holiday weekend and stuff like that. Super high praise, by the way. You're awesome. But there are certain people that when I showed it to, they were just kind of like, what? Oh, real. Oh, yeah. Okay. I get it. I see the fishing rod. Now I see the fishing reel, and I kind of got critical feedback on the logo, but that's for me. But what I'm saying is it was about the reel, right? And we have the spinning reel in the logo. I guess that's the easiest way to put it.
Yep.
So this attention that was brought to the reel made me think about like, oh yeah, dude, we need to talk about the spinning reel. Like it's in the fucking logo. And it made me think, yeah, I guess that's just what I think of when I think of a fishing reel now. Like, I know there's more than that, But like to me, this is the fishing reel. Like you say fishing reel to me, bam, spinning reel
Mm-hmm.
pops up in my head.
Yeah.
Is that weird? Am I like, I just think of there's so many different
No.
varieties and shit, and that it's just become the standard almost.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is because we live in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I think if you live down south, a lot of times when it depends on what you're into. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
if you fish for muskies or you are fishing bass,
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
bait caster probably pops into your head. You
Oh,
know,
sure,
like
sure, sure.
I hear a decent amount of even the pros talking about it, where they're telling people like, don't sleep on a spinning reel because like all the people that like
Mm.
to fish for bass, like the kids and stuff, the people coming up, they're just like that bait caster, you know, they're just talking
Mm-hmm.
about just hucking jigs or hucking whatever it is, and they just want
Mm-hmm.
to keep casting it and throwing it and skipping it, all this other shit. So like they're really in to that bait caster. But here in Minnesota, like the spinning reel works like there's like an inline reel for ice fishing now that's been popularized, and you can see that in
Mm-hmm.
other episodes of ours if you go back to some of the ice fishing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, like it's all spinning reels, you know? There
Yeah.
are no wintertime bait casters. So when
Right.
you're
Yeah.
talking in the winter, that's all you're using. And when you're out there walleye fishing, for the most part, that's all you're using. And when you're bobber fishing, that's all you're using. I've never seen anybody bobber fish with a bait caster. You probably could, but that's a little bit crazy. So I think I think it's just like where we live. I think more
Okay. Yeah.
Minnesota as a whole, there's far more spinning reels than there are bait casters. But when you go down south, to where it's predominantly bass fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Bass, I was gonna say
Bass
fishermen
fishing.
and then fishing, and the fishing came out.
Came out fishing. That's
But the
cool.
fishing down there is done with the bait casters, you know. So that's what they're
Yeah.
fishing with, is them doohickeys, and they don't even think about these. And so these are also, you know, they're great for bass fishing, but they're a lot of times more of a finesse setup when you're talking bass fishing. And I think a lot of the guys down south, especially like the hobby fishermen, the ones that aren't doing it for um, a job, are
Yeah.
out there trying to catch that big fish. So they're just out there
Uh-huh.
hucking, you know, swim baits every chance they can, just
Okay.
throwing the biggest stuff they can.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure,
Just going for a trophy, right?
yeah, yeah. And you could throw big stuff with a spinning reel for sure, because they do that out in the saltwater. And that's
Mm-hmm.
another thing. When you go out in saltwater, they have like the bait caster style, the big old school can, like
Oh yeah.
uh
That thing's like a
the
can. Like you're
Abu
not
Garcia.
kidding when you
Yeah.
say it's like a coffee can almost sitting
Yeah,
on
dude,
top of
it's
that fucking
they're
reel.
massive. Those ones out there are massive because they gotta hold so much line. Because some of those fish they're
Oh,
fighting are like 1,000 pounds.
right, right. Yeah, like when
So
you're fighting a marlin or,
yeah,
something
exactly.
like that.
But
Yeah. Mhm.
those are like their trolling. They just pull giant baits in the water.
Right. Yeah.
Everything down there when you're fishing and casting and stuff is
Mhm.
either fly fishing or they're using spinning gear. They don't, for the most part, use bait casters down there either when you get into salt water. And I think
Right.
that's more of the way the reel is constructed. The spinning reel
Mhm.
can be sealed up a little bit easier and not let the salt water get into the gears.
Oh.
I'm guessing. I don't know how,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not a
yeah. I was gonna say
saltwater
you're not a
fisherman.
yeah.
So,
But it's a good guess. So, before we go further down, I'm gonna pull out some of the boring stuff, like, what is the definition of a spinning wheel from Webster?
okay.
A fishing reel with a non-moving spool on which the line is wound by means of a revolving arm, which can be disengaged to allow the line to spiral freely off the spool during casting.
Correct. Good job, Webster.
That's a lot of crazy words, in my opinion.
I was listening, and it is all right. It's exactly what it is.
So, you have one with, right, Tim?
Yeah, I have a couple.
So people who are watching, you'll see it. Tim's got some stuff. We're gonna have a show and tell situation. But the people who aren't, can look at the logo. That's why we chose the spinning reel, because like for me it was the first thing that just popped in my mind. I did a little sketch. Tim was like, cool, modify, we made a few modifications, and the next thing you know, we got the Real AF TV logo. And it was like, again, back to the beginning, the logo and all this stuff. It was just one of those situations where it just came naturally. So go check it out. It's a visual representation. It's got the arm on it. Like, you'll get a good idea, or just Google it, but don't Google it.
Dude, and actually, if I remember correctly, I think you made the logo with like a bait caster. And I was like, can we do a spinning reel? Like, cause it made more sense for the arc of the rod. Oh, like the rod would have been bending the wrong way. Gotcha. So I was like, put a spinning reel on that, and then it makes sense for the rod to bend that way.
Right?
Yeah. Because I think you had a bait caster mounted on the same side that it was, but then the rod would have been bending backwards. And I was like, let's make that a spinning reel, because makes sense.
Like, yeah. Okay. I can remember that. I know there was some back and forth about it, and I can see that being the case for sure. I might have traced just a spinning when I originally made it, but anyways, I'm getting off topic. So yeah, Tim, go ahead and bring it up here.
Yeah. So can you it said that it was a spool, or not? Oh yeah, that's what it is. But it was a reel, so you're talking reel.
Yeah, fishing
and reel. And then this doesn't move unless it's the drag, which we'll talk about in a second. Yep. But you have this part is stationary. This doesn't move.
Oh, the part that the line sits on is the non-moving spool. Okay.
So that's the non-moving part, and this arm rotates around it as it reels up. So that is what is winding the line on there.
Yeah.
And then you can open it like that. That's the bail
by means of a revolving arm. Yeah.
Yes. So that's the revolving arm. If you turn it, you can see that it spins. Now I'm starting to hook my little jig up here, but
yeah, I see that. It's all good.
It spins, but then it can be released. You flip it open, and then you can see how that jig even just fell.
Yep.
Because the line is slack now.
Yeah.
But then
and now you can just pull line off that spool freely.
Right. Yep.
And that's so you open that up when you cast.
That's and then if
allow the line to spiral freely off the spool.
You can see that jig right there. If I turn it, makes it tight, lifts it up.
Yep.
Re-puts it back on there. So that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. It's weird to put the words like all these like formal definition when you're just talking about it and showing it. It's like, yeah, of course. Like, and then you put all these words to it, and it's like, oh yeah, damn, dude, crazy.
Yeah, that's what
it
I was
sets
like,
in it a different way, man.
Right. And that's what I was doing, was just replaying it in my head. I'm like, okay, yep. And then the arm, yep,
right.
And then it, okay, yep,
yeah. And obviously we're familiar. Obviously you're very familiar with the spinning rod, with the spinning reel, my bad.
Yeah.
But this is one of those situations, again, the learning part of the Real AF TV podcast, where we're
for sure
of Real AF TV in general, where it's just like, I want somebody to see this and then go like, oh yeah, I want to know more for sure, because like I don't really get that. Or even like you said, maybe they're just bait casting. And they're like, oh yeah, what are these spinners all about?
Or maybe you just don't know, like, because everything I know is from like reading into it, looking into it, figuring it all out. on
Right,
my
right.
own and like digging into these things. I don't know if I ever watched a video or listened to anybody explain the differences in all these different things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure.
definitely here to give some insight on what things are and stuff. And
Yeah.
so, I don't know if you had any other direction, but I figured since I got it in my hand right now and I was
Mhm.
talking about the spool,
Mhm. Mhm.
it is stationary. And I don't know if it's always been stationary. I know there was a couple of different iterations of like spinning reels and stuff when they come out, but this does not spin unless the drag goes. When the drag goes, then that does spin, because when the drag goes, you can hear that ticking and stuff, and then it does spin.
Oh,
You
okay.
can see that. So that's how the drag works. The drag is letting out line. So like if you had a big fish and it was pulling on it or whatever, then you don't have to worry about the line getting snapped, because your reel is
Yeah.
actually allowing line to come off of it, because it knows, oh, that's too much resistance. You gotta give some back.
And so the spool actually does
Yeah.
move then
Yep.
in that
Yep.
case.
Yeah.
Crazy. I
So
didn't
when the
understand
drag,
what that was. Like,
yeah,
see, even
and
as
it's
much
a,
as I've used it before, I've never had to use the drag. You know what I mean?
yeah, and it's a dial to set the drag. This
Yeah,
is the
so
dial.
yeah, you're getting into the parts, and the funny thing is I got parts from Dick's Sporting Goods.
Yeah.
uh, so there's the
That's how
drag.
you learn, man. That's how you do it. That's
Oh,
the
yeah.
Dick's Sporting Goods or whatever. You go on, you research it. That's how I've learned most of my stuff, is by
Sure.
reading
Okay.
the description of rods and reels, or physically going in and playing with them.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, that's it's funny. It's funny, like it because it felt stupid to me, just like, oh yeah, Dick's Sporting Goods, okay, huge sporting goods store, but yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah, they're all resources, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, the drag in the front,
Mm-hmm.
the spool, which we already talked about, where the line goes around, the bail, that
Yep.
must be the
The bail is the
the
lever.
arm
The
that
arm, yeah, whatever they said, the arm.
yeah.
Yeah.
In Webster they called it a revolving arm. So like more of a
Right.
proper term would be bail, because I've heard that open the bail to cast.
Yeah, because it's this whole thing is the revolving arm, but then the bail is just the piece. This, I don't know how well you can see it. This piece flips up. I'm trying to put my thumb on there so I don't lose line, but
Right.
that piece flips up. And when
Yeah,
that flips up,
that moving part of the arm, that
yeah.
part that flips
And
of the
if
arm
you,
that puts tension on the line.
a little tip for people, if you want to elongate the life of your spinning reels, after you cast that out, physically push that shut with your hand. When you start cranking the reel, it'll close it for you, but I always like hit it.
Yep.
Eventually that will fail. When you crank it with your hand,
Yep.
it will fail
Yep.
eventually, but it
Mhm.
won't almost never if you close it with your hand first.
Yep. I agree. I do. I
Yeah.
fish that way too. I really do. I throw it out. I wait till I get to a point, and then I just flick it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we got, real quick,
Yep.
I'll show you. They don't always have this ratchet. That's
I'll bring that
on.
into your mic a little bit more. I can hear it pretty good right now, but like, I want to hear.
So that's me messing with that. That extra ting is me hitting a lamp. This one, that's a lamp. This is the tick. So that's me adjusting the drag.
Okay.
So if I pull on it, that's taking out drag, and I'm pulling kind of hard. But if I twist it harder, like I gotta pull pretty hard to do that. Or if
Okay.
I turn it
Yep.
the other way, almost like, give it another one. No resistance.
Oh yeah.
It just comes out.
You're pulling it so much easier. Like even people who are listening, I mean, obviously you're doing a
Yeah.
great job with it, but like it was just cool to watch your arm do the same motion and hear the
Yeah.
difference in the
Right.
sound, because like
Yeah.
it was a huge difference, and it's all that little knob on the front
Yeah.
of the spinning reel.
And it all depends on what kind of fish you're going for. Like if you watch the pros, in their like second to last, this last the Bassmasters Elite Series, the second to last one, when they were in North Dakota and they were fishing for, or maybe South Dakota, one of the Dakotas.
It was South Dakota. Yeah, it was South Dakota because they were
South
fishing
Dakota?
off the 212 bridge.
Yeah.
By
Okay.
the 212 bridge.
That's right.
How
That's
I
right. That's
remember.
right. Yep. So they were fishing for smallmouth there, and they were kind of like finicky and using smaller stuff. If you listen to them, they have that drag set like super light because they're
Really?
fishing for relatively big fish, and you can hear that the drag's going like almost the whole time, and they're reeling as the drag's going. They're just like trying to give that fish absolutely no wiggle room. They're constantly reeling and the drag's constantly pulling, and the line is like tight the whole time, but never too tight. It's kind of crazy to hear. Like they set it and you just hear it go. It's just this the whole fight.
Yes. Now that you say that, yes, I heard that. I don't know why I didn't. I've never talked about the drag in depth on spinning rod like this or spinning reel like this before. So it didn't click like that.
Yeah.
But it was very weird to hear you tell that story. Have you make that sound and then have the memory come back.
Yeah.
Of all those, like every single time almost. Holy
and I think
cow.
some people get it confused too with there's a bait alert on certain like trolling stuff when the drag will come out, but they have it so it's actually like a louder version of this, like an intentional like a way louder click, so that you know not just that it's the drag, but that you know line is coming off of it and stuff.
Oh.
And I think some people, I've even heard people be like, can you shut that off? You know, like, well, it's not the bait alert. That's my drag. And that's a good sign. That means I got a good fish on. Like, you should be excited when you hear that shit. You know, you should be like, oh, dude, drag's running. Like, and I've seen plenty of different things out there too, where people are talking about, you know, there's Instagram posts where people are being like, what's name a better sound? Like, I dare you to name a better sound. And they'll have like a basketball like swishing or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And those are all good. You know, I like the sound of a basketball swish too, but they'll have be like, name a better sound. And then it's that, you know, like, ooh,
right. You're like, that one gets me going way more than a swish.
Oh, for sure. You're just like, oh, he's got a good fish on.
Yeah, dude. That's so good.
Yeah.
So with drag, there's a little knobby in the front, and you can you turn it up and you turn it down, and it makes it harder to pull the line out. Or pull the line out while the bail's closed. That would be the way to put it.
Yes,
because once it's open, it's free flowing.
Right, when the bail is open, it's 100% free flowing. The drag on the front, which the other reels have it too, but we're just talking about the spinning reel.
Right.
And
drag is a general, like there's a general term about the drag.
Yeah.
Or I mean, there's a general setting, right, about drag. So then you have the bail, bail open and closed on these things. And that was, can you do that sound though? I just want to hear that sound. Can you click that right in the mic?
You want
the opening and closing of the bail?
Oh, yeah. Here, let me make sure that
I got to set it up here.
Ready?
Yep.
That's open. This is closed.
It's such a good sound.
Yeah.
Seriously. I love that sound. And then of course your handle, that's where you're actually reeling. Like that's where the motion, the action is real.
Right. The handle.
Reel a
pretty
verb
obvious stuff.
Too.
Yeah.
Reel's a verb.
Yeah, it is. Reel's a verb. Reel's a noun.
Yeah.
Reel is a, well, that's spelled different. I was going to say R-E-A-L.
I know where you're going. Going with that. Trying to recall your English class. So here's the one thing that I didn't get. There's two things, but one thing that I didn't even know, and I'm not joking. I looked at this thing after doing my research. Did my research tonight. Went out in the morning. I was like, wait a minute. What? The anti-reverse switch? What the fuck is that thing?
Yeah. I hate it when it flips. You don't even know sometimes. You're just like, what the hell's going on here?
Okay, so it just said like in the Dick's article that I read, it said something like it's sort of a different kind of drag or like an alternative to drag, or you can work it with the drag. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
what?
So
Can
it's
you just
like a
explain this? Sorry, yeah, just
yeah,
I don't mean to
yeah.
cut, like I don't mean to keep going on, but like I don't even know what it is, and I just had to say that about the drag just to have you work it in here
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm
So
confused, man.
I think here's a good way to explain it. It's like a manual drag.
Oh,
So the drag itself, right, is it comes out on its own when you pull.
yeah, and you just adjust
But
the tension of
yeah,
that depending
here,
on
watch
the
this.
situation.
I'll put a little bit of tension on here. So right now, the anti-reverse is off, right? So this isn't going backwards. When I
The
reel it,
handle.
when I reel it forward, it's staying right where I leave it. Watch when I flip the switch. Where is it? It's right here, I think.
Got to find the one on this particular.
Oh, I hit the mic. Did you see it?
Yeah, you hit the mic, but it was actually a great effect.
Yeah.
Made me
So
jump a
that's
little bit because I was like, "What just happened?"
see how it goes. I reel one way and I can reel it back the other way. I can literally reel the spool either way.
Okay, so you can
So I don't know. That might look.
it's reeling both ways now. Like the
Uh
action
huh.
of reeling in a fish
Yeah.
is
So
now
that's
both forward and backwards. What?
yeah. So you can do both. So it's like you can reel it backwards, and it's doing it backwards. It's moving the arm backwards. I'm legitimately just letting line out.
So you're reeling in is one way, and
Yeah.
then reeling out this
Yeah.
time.
The reverse. Yeah. Just going backwards. And
That's
here's
what
the
the
problem with it.
anti-reverse switch does. So if you don't
Yeah.
have the anti-reverse switch on,
Then it does stuff like this.
then
Like
you
I'll
can.
be like reeling and fighting a fish. And then on a normal day, like if you're trying to grab a net or whatever with your offhand, you can reel and it'll stay there and you have tension on and you'll be like reeling and be like, I got to grab the net. And then all of a sudden you go,
Right.
oh, no, 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 no. What the? And just all of a sudden, like give him a bunch of slack. And you're like, damn it.
Right, right.
That switch is off again.
Damn it. I bumped the anti-reverse.
Exactly. So,
I've never
yeah.
bumped it. I've never seen it in action before.
Well, and now they've like thought about it where they kind of put it in a better spot or they make it harder to switch. Like this one's anti-reverse switch is right here. It's just a
Oh wow, that's
little
way underneath that one.
yeah, and I've seen some where they're like right back here, way easier to hit. This one's like directly underneath, right up against the spool. It's way
Yeah.
harder to get at.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you really have to be intentionally underneath there.
Right. Yeah.
So keep fucking hitting everything.
Even the one on our is it the presidential? Right.
President.
President.
Yep.
Yeah. So that one's well formed to the back part of it. Like
Yeah, the president's a good reel. So you start, when you get into that realm, which is like that's like a $50 reel.
yeah.
When you get into that realm, they, well, plus everybody's like learning these things as they go along pretty much. So
Sure.
spinning reels are designed a lot better than they were in the past.
Right. Yeah. Really good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you check out this one. A little bit cheaper.
Oh, yeah, you got more.
A little bit cheaper. Look how big that one is.
Oh,
So
I
that
can
one's
see that one now.
yeah, it's still in the same spot, but
Still
this
like
is a
underneath
little
it.
bit yeah. This
But
is
I
a
could see it.
cheaper.
You just holding it. I could see the switch. Where on the other one, you had to flip it up and bring it up to the camera and say, like, here it is.
Right. Yeah, and this is a goddamn this is a relatively like high end reel. A retail, I think that this one's like 130 or something, and that 13 fishing one I think is like 40.
Okay. Yeah. Big difference.
Yeah.
Are they?
Plus,
They're
I think
always under too, right? Like they're always underneath the rod.
yeah, I think
Like
for
they
the
always
most
hang
part.
underneath.
Yeah, I think for the the spinning reels.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that's where they're supposed to
Hey,
be. But I've
yeah.
seen a lot of people fish them the other way, and it just breaks my soul, dude. They're because you have to reel it the wrong way. They're like reeling backwards and stuff, and you're just like, oh, Yeah, it's like the most painful thing to see. Somebody on a fishing pier just like cranking it like just
Cranking it backwards.
Yeah, I just want to go out there and just be like, can I just show you?
Right. Please, can I just want to help.
Yeah.
Like, that's honestly all I'm
And
trying
I
to do.
have shown people too before, and they're just like, but I just like this is just what it feels like. I like to reel
What?
with this hand or whatever. And you're like, all right, well then you just got to go get the other reel, or
Yep.
switch the reel like these ones.
Yeah.
You just switch it.
I
Not
haven't
all
seen a
of
spinning rod. Well, I keep saying rod.
Yeah.
Fucking A. I haven't seen a spinning reel where you can't switch the handle.
Yeah. Those are I think some of the saltwater ones are sealed.
Oh, right.
So you can't.
Yeah. Of
But
course.
there's just
Well, that makes sense.
it's like a cap that's on the opposite side of where the handle is. And then
Right.
you just take that out and put it on the other side. This one actually has a screw in there.
Yeah.
So it
Nice.
can't. Yeah, once it's switched, it's nice. Some of them are a little bit cheaper than that, and it's really easy to switch, but it's also easy for it to come loose.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to keep messing with it.
Right.
But yeah.
That sucks. Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
confession. I wasn't ready for this yet, but I
Yeah.
have to say it. I'm a right-hand reeler.
It's all right. I'm too. You reel with
Are
your
you?
right hand, right? Yeah. So
Yeah,
here's
like my handle is on the right side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I think a lot of the world is on the right side, but the difference being is that I'm left-handed, so I cast with my left hand.
Right.
You cast with your right hand though?
I do because I'm
Yeah.
right-handed. Yeah. So
that's
it's like I push. I to skateboarding reference back to because back in the days, like I think I push manga fishing.
You're right.
I'm like embarrassed about it. I'm manga.
Nah, man. There's pros that do it. The only problem is that it's like less efficient.
Right.
When so I'm casting, especially with like a bait caster where you're casting out and you're as soon as it hits the water, you're reeling it back in and stuff. With a bait caster, I have it in my left hand. I'm pushing the button. I'm casting with my left hand, and I never move it out of that hand. And then I just reel it in with my right hand, and then cast and keep going.
Right.
Where yours is like, if you were casting with your right hand, as soon as it hits the water, you got to like switch the reel to the other hand and reel it in.
Yep.
That's just how it goes. Some people are like that. Some people aren't.
Yeah.
Sam is the opposite way. Our buddy Sam. He reels left-handed because he casts with his right hand. So he'll cast with his right hand and reel with his left.
Yep.
But there's quite a few people that do it like that. Like they just like to have everything right-handed.
Yeah. That's me.
That's me. Not a big deal. Nothing to be
I did
embarrassed
seriously
about.
feel like I was going to come to this podcast and be like, I had it at the bottom of the notes where I'm like, well, we're just going to end on this note real quick. Josh pushes manga, but
just gonna out yourself or whatever. No, man, no worries.
Eventually, someone's going to see it in a video. Like that's why I'm just like going to say it.
Yeah. So I gotta tell
Is
you
it
too.
Manga or Mongo now? I'm saying, I think I'm confusing my Japanese.
Dude, yeah. I don't even know, man. Honest, I've heard it said before, but I just say switch.
It's Mongo, but I'm
Goofy.
just like I'm just goofing it up with manga. I've been reading. Well, we'll do a different topic about that later. Anyways,
skateboards. Yeah.
Spinning reels. Okay. You said it about ice fishing already, and you said saltwater and stuff like that too. So like the version that you just have been showing here on the podcast, the version that's in the logo, they make like big versions of that.
Yeah.
For saltwater, right? Like, I mean, it looks the same. It operates the same as far as we know. I don't know that you've ever had your hands on it.
I've seen them before. Definitely seen them before.
Yeah. But they're the same thing. They're just bulked up, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they make tiny little ones for ice fishing, and it's like exactly the same. Which I don't. That's where I was kind of going with this because okay, cool. Just so the listeners and the watchers know, like we typically operate with the medium version because there's like a jumbo saltwater version, and then there's like a tiny ice version. we do more open water fishing than either one
Right.
of those. They're open water, freshwater fishing, right?
Right.
So that brings me to the mini one of ice
Yeah.
fishing. I feel like you said it seemed like 13 really pushed that boundary. I feel like you've said that before, or not boundary, but like push that into existence.
There's a little
Hey!
there's a little ice fishing. No, 13 is the one that I think they really started making a lot of the inline ones. I don't know if they were the
Okay,
first, but
I
I think that
misinterpreted that.
they started, like, they have their Black Betty is a famous one. I don't know for sure who came out with what first, but it seems like they really popularized it, you know? If not
Gotcha.
them
Yeah.
being the first ones, they were one of the first ones, and they really, you know, brought it to
Yeah.
the market. And now there's
Yeah.
a lot of other companies that never had one before that do make one,
Gotcha.
like Fluger. There's a Fluger President version of
Oh,
inline
of an inline,
ice
like ice
reel.
fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, so there's some that never existed before. So this one
Right.
is just a little tiny Berkeley. Don't worry about the rod. That's a whole different setup. Like, this is for like a tip up deal.
Oh,
Anyways,
right. Right.
yeah. So
I gotcha.
it's a different handle is all it is. It's just Velcro strapped on there. But
Yeah.
this is just a little tiny Berkeley rod. I've went away from using this, but the nice part about this is even though it's small, still has the drag, you know.
Ah,
So um they have drag on the inline ones, but this
the new inline ones.
yeah, but this one being the, like, a dead stick version of this is basically like I just set this out and it's on like a tip up deal.
Yeah.
And then if it, I can set the drag really, really loose so the fish can just take it and swim with it,
Right. And then your flag will pop, you run over, and
Exactly.
then make
Yep.
adjustments if needed, and wham, set the hook.
Exactly. Yep.
So is that because when I was growing up and ice fishing when I was young, it was these it was like hand rods almost, right? Like you'd
Oh
spool
yeah.
it out from underneath the wooden stick, or the tip ups back in the day.
Yeah.
They were just straight up. They were just wooden blocks with fish wrapped around them, or with fishing line wrapped around it with a flag on it. Like
They still
there
have
was
those.
no reel. It was all hand drawn, or like hand
Yeah.
pulling, basically.
Right.
Is that the big revolution with the spinning reel in the winter? Because I'm going, seems excessive. You don't even cast the motherfucker.
No, no. I think the big thing with the spinning reel is just to be able to have that drag. Like, that hand is,
Yeah.
there's no drag. That's all you and stuff. So
Right. Yeah.
it just made a lot of stuff more um attainable, more stuff that you can do. Being
Oh,
able to
okay.
pick up the slack faster and stuff. It's not all just hand. Being able to, like, work a rod.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have you have to have a rod to be able to, like, do some of these different kind of fishings and stuff.
Sure.
So when you're that hand stuff is just different. And I think the spinning rod has been around for quite a while as far as ice fishing goes. But
Oh,
there's been
okay.
a lot of advancements in the different rods and the reels and the way you can set them up. Like, this
Okay.
is like a normal tip up. They still have a lot of them where it is just a spool on the board or whatever.
Yeah.
But this one's set up to be able to sit on just like a little piece of metal.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get into the whole thing, but
Right.
that's why this is there, because it's just kind of hinged and it moves. But yeah, I mean, that really makes a big difference in what it opens up a whole bunch of different things that you're able to do.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
for me, like, I have a micro light, so which is like a panfish reel,
Yeah.
which is kind of a little bit bigger than this one. But I take that one off and I just put it on an ice fishing rod in the winter.
Oh.
So it's a pan
Oh,
fishing.
shit.
It's a
Double
pan
use.
fishing. Yeah, it's a pan fishing reel in the summer, and then it's just ice fishing because it's a really nice quality small reel. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you were talking about the medium size that we deal with here, there definitely are different sizes even for
There
like
is.
the spinning rods. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that was one thing that I wanted to explain because I didn't know that when I was younger, and it was kind of confusing because not all the manufacturers name their stuff alike. And that's why I brought these two reels in too, to explain the differences. Because depending on your manufacturers, some of them go with thousands because there's like a
Okay.
1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000.
Okay.
So this is 13 fishing. This is a Creed. And this is a 1,000. I don't
Okay.
know if you can see that. So a 1,000.
Okay.
You can kind of
Yeah.
see that right there. It says 1,000.
Okay.
So
Yeah. For
this
the
is,
audio listeners, he's
yeah,
showing it.
this is the smaller one. This is the smallest before you start talking that you're into
Oh,
like microlight stuff.
right. Okay.
So this is the smallest. But then,
So does that number mean anything besides it's just a size thing? Like, does it have is it
no,
like a milliliters or something like that, or millimeters?
just not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
It's just a size thing as far as I know.
Yeah.
And it might be the actual size of the spool.
Mm.
It might have
Mm-hmm.
something to do with the size of the spool, like the
Okay.
circumference or whatever.
Right.
And then that kind of makes the whole reel bigger.
I
But
suppose it
like
would, because
this,
that's like the center of it. To like get back to the physical presence of it is like the spool is like the biggest part and almost the entire center. Everything
right.
centers around the spool. That's I think
Yeah.
the easiest way to explain this rod or
Right.
this reel. God.
Yeah. So you're talking like the biggest is like 4,000 around here. And I think
Okay.
you can get bigger than that. I think there's like 5 and 6,000. I don't know. But as far as like what we're used to and what we have around here, like those are the common ones, 1,000 through 4,000.
Okay.
Or like Quantum has 10, 20, 30, 40. Same shit. You
Oh,
just take two
right.
zeros off. So
So you
like
still
this one,
understand it.
yeah, this one here, I don't know how well you can see that. It says Vapor 30
Oh, okay.
because this is a 30.
Yep.
So I don't know how well you can see the size differences, but you can
Oh no,
see
that
that the
shows
one,
up. If you're genuinely holding them on top of each other without the camera, without
yeah,
depth of field, we know how that works with fishing photos. Am I
yeah,
right?
right. No, they're right on top of each other.
Yeah, you can see it then. So I can't
Yeah.
describe that in audio
Oops.
form. You have to
Yeah,
go
and I
to
can't
video
either. The only
for
thing you can
vision.
do is check out the videos if you want to see the differences. Or
Yeah,
you can just Google it, But
sure.
um, there's another size higher. I don't have any 4,000s. The majority of mine are like 3,000s. The presidents
Mm-hmm.
that we have, I'm pretty sure are like 30s. But the same,
Okay.
I don't even know what Fluger does. I don't know if they're 1,000s. I think they're 30s. I'm pretty sure they do 30s and 40s too.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a size difference there.
Yeah.
And
No,
like,
that was actually one of the main questions that I had written down too, is because I was like, so that means all the other ones must translate that way too. Like I don't know about ice fishing because they're already so goddamn small, but like that means the
right,
saltwater
yeah.
ones must have it too. But I'm glad that you asked that because yeah, I just had we're used to medium size around here, but what does that mean? It means
Right.
there's a range.
Yeah. And I honestly think I'm not real well versed with bigger stuff for ice fishing because I don't really go for any big stuff
You're
out
not
there.
musky fishing in the
Right.
winter.
Or
Yeah.
like pike. I know some people go for pike and they'll set up like a tip up like this one has for bigger fish and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, I think they're all this small size.
Mm-hmm.
And I should hold up the bigger one too to give people a comparison there.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
this is a 30 and this is the little guy.
Looks like a micro machine next to a Hot Wheel.
Yeah, I'll put it depth of field even like that one's clearly in front of it and you can still see the other one very well behind it. Like
Right.
there's definitely a difference in size there. The ice fishing ones are quite a bit smaller. But
Yeah.
I think for the most part they're all the same. The real difference in the ice fishing is just you got to be able to know what kind of line you're going to be dealing with. Like this one's rated
Mm-hmm.
to go up to like 6 pounds
Mm-hmm.
and it's like 120 yards. 120 yards, like pointless. Like you can cut your line and like retie it and stuff a lot, but like depending on where you're fishing, it's just
Right.
it's
You need 10 feet.
yeah, right. So it's definitely not needed. But that's the thing is, the smaller sizes too are lighter. When it's smaller, there's less material, it's lighter. So that's why I have
Yeah.
this 1000 on that as like a drop shot reel, so more of a finesse, being able to
Okay.
feel the lighter bait better and stuff. And then
Yeah, for sure.
the 30 is on, this is like a medium heavy spinning reel, so I can throw out bigger stuff.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
casting bigger jigs with that, up to like
Right.
3/8 ounce and stuff this summer.
Okay.
So
That, you made a perfect, like, you answered my question without me even having to ask it, because that's where I was going to go when you started talking about how many yards fit on that ice setup and stuff like that.
yeah.
It made me think, like, so the bigger ones can hold more line, or like what line would you like, so does it actually depend on what line you put on a spinning
Yeah,
reel?
I mean, it's God damn it. I'm just like scraping the ceiling. I don't know if you keep hearing that. That's me scraping the ceiling every time. Sorry.
I don't know if it's going to show up. I can hear it
I don't know
slightly. I
either,
don't know
but
if it's
every
going to show
time
up in the final version.
I just wanted to explain that in case anybody heard, like, so
Right.
they know why I say "God damn it" every 20 minutes.
Because Tim's in a basement, in his basement studio, and he has 12 plus foot rods in there, not 12-foot ceilings.
Right. I mean, they're not 12 foot, but
I know they're not 12. I was
know.
exaggerating, but
Just a giant like cane pole. That would be a nightmare. That's never coming in the house.
that I would never.
Right. So it does matter. It does make a difference on what line you're putting on there, because if you're using like braided line, you can definitely get away with a lot more because braided line's diameter is so much smaller compared to the test.
Right.
And if you look on the boxes, a lot of times it'll say that, where it's like a 30-pound braided line and it says like comparable to, like 10-pound mono diameter.
Oh.
So just the braided line is like so much thinner than the mono of the same test, just because a mono is, like a monofilament. It's like one strand, it's one thing, where braided line is literally a bunch of little fibers braided together. It makes it way stronger, and you can get away with a smaller, not get away, but it has a smaller diameter,
Right.
So
yeah.
But as far as like how much line you can put on there, that just kind of goes based off of the different spool sizes and stuff, and they all give you kind of suggestions. Like nothing's saying that you can't. Okay. And I thought some of these, I don't know, I guess these ones don't say it on there.
Oh, like you thought it was actually like stamped on.
Oh, mine says it on the spool here. Yeah, I have it on other ones. This one actually lists the different line. I didn't even know that. It says mono, I can do 150 yards at 10 pounds.
That's stamped right there.
And then it says braid, I can do 220 yards at 20 pounds. So there's the difference. I can go more length at a higher test.
Right.
So, yeah.
I didn't know that. And when you're running, and if you're going for big fish and you got a runner.
Yeah. And it's something else for me to look into. It actually says meters versus millimeters. Like meters/millimeters.
Oh.
And it's 165 over 0.26. No idea what that means. I have to figure that one out.
Yep. I'm not sure what that means either.
News to me. Learned something on the podcast today. But yeah, like a lot of them will when you're looking at the line too. If you're looking at buying a reel, you can do that too. Just check it out. Like if you go into a store, you can pick them up and you can look at the reels, and they'll actually say it right on. Like this one said it on the face, right up here on the actual top.
Yep. Right by the drag.
Right. It looks like my 13 fishing one actually says the same. Right on the top there.
Yep. Okay.
And then, but a lot of them commonly will say it right here. The hell was I knocked something else over? A lot of them will commonly say it right here, like
Like right
directly
behind the spool. That
underneath.
like
Yeah,
there's
like
usually a
it's
band
actually
right
on the
behind the
spool
spool.
itself.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of on the spool, I was
Hmm.
going to show somebody this too because I saw that in the notes you had talked about like cleaning and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that was something that I wanted to get to about these things, and I wasn't gonna ask
Yeah.
you to take it apart, but, like,
Well, it's
I feel
not.
like you could make one of these things last forever because they
Yeah.
come apart, like,
Yeah.
pretty
So,
extensive
I mean, you can
apart.
see everything in there. It's already pretty much open. Like this one is not one of those super sealed ones.
Right.
It's just open. That gives a lot of the weight and stuff. But that same drag, just twist it until it comes off, and then it just pulls right off. You can see
Yeah.
there's your main gear, and that slides on there and stuff. So I don't suggest like pulling this off on every one. Like it's sometimes it can be a little bit tasking to get them back on. Not all the rods and reels are made
Mm.
perfectly, but
Mhm.
yeah, you can see that there is like some gear lube
Yeah.
in here on different stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, just kind of like an oil change or whatever. Or
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if you
Well
dropped it in
put.
some sand and you got some grit in there, like stuff that's
Right.
gonna mess it up. You want to always
Right.
try to like clean that out and make sure. But for the most part, like that president, I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever taken that apart and done anything with it.
Just a
And
durable reel.
it has been going strong forever.
Sure.
So it's as long as you take care of your stuff, for the most
Mhm.
part, you're gonna be fine. You don't have to worry about it a lot of the times.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's definitely something where you can take it apart. I have um an Ardent reel cleaning kit. I'm sure you can get them from a bunch of different
Mhm.
manufacturers. Ardent is a reel manufacturer, and they make like a reel cleaning kit, and then it has like a bunch of a couple different gear lubes and grease and stuff
Mhm.
in there and
Mhm.
different things
Nice.
to get in there and clean it up with. So
Yeah.
um definitely maintenance. These are high quality pieces of machinery pretty much,
Right.
and as
Yeah.
long as you maintain them well, they're gonna last.
Right.
you know
Yeah.
i
No,
i've
that's
only
actually
had
that's exactly it, is because I know how much you've spent on some of these things, or, how much they retail for, at the very least, and it's like, shit, man, hope that there's a way to take care of it if you feel like you have to, and then, yeah, I remember, or, like the drag, if you screw it too long, you can fall it falls off. I've never pulled it all the way apart, but I've definitely taken the drag too far and poop,
yeah.
oh, shit.
there it goes. Yeah, and that's what happens. If anybody's ever wondered like what happens if you twist it too far, that's what happens. It just comes back off. And if anybody heard me just twisting it back on there, that's all it was. I just twisted it back on, and now it's back one piece and
Back in
ready to
action.
roll. So that's how you do that. You just take it off, just unscrew that. That is universal. I've
That's
never
basic.
seen one that differs from that. It
Yeah.
all, like, you want to take that spool off, you unscrew it like that, because you can also get different spools. You could have it lined up. There's different companies that will machine
Oh, I don't know
other
why that took so
spools.
long to set in. Sorry.
That
For
spool
anybody
itself,
listening, like, what is
yeah,
dragging?
that spool itself, like other manufacturers have machined them like to fit your thing. Like
Crazy.
I wouldn't say that if you have some cheap Shakespeare version, and not shitting on Shakespeare, but like Shakespeare, some of the stuff is just
They
cheaper.
make the real cheap stuff. I mean, they
Yeah,
make that stuff that goes into Walmart in the,
Fluger,
like,
and yeah,
package, the
Fluger and Shakes.
pre-packaged reel at
Right.
Walmart.
Yeah, the Shakespeare Ugly Stick is a pretty good rod. The carbon, they make quality rods now, but they've never really stepped it up in the reels
Mm.
because Fluger is Shakespeare. So
Oh, so they didn't
Fluger
have
is
to.
like the high end Shakespeare. So Shakespeare's
Right.
are just inherently cheap, and I'm sure if you're trying to find like a custom machine spooled, spool.
Mm-hmm.
I said that
No,
all messed up.
no, I get it.
But
Machine
yeah,
spool. Yeah. What do
yeah,
you got?
if it's custom made and you're looking for like a cheap reel, probably not going to be able to find it. But if you're looking for somebody else that made a spool specifically for your rod, they exist for a lot of different kinds of stuff out there. I
Damn.
think more so bait casters and spinning, but
Mm-hmm.
you can find them, and then you can have different lines ready to roll. Just have it on the
Oh,
spool and just quick switch that spool and bam,
and
boom.
go. Holy shit. Cool. Yeah. Didn't think of that.
Yeah,
You can just swap out the spool. That's where all
lots
the
of fun
line
stuff.
lives.
That is where the line lives, and it's I don't know if I ever said it when I was just pointing out where it says all the different lines and stuff, but like if you know what you're trying to use, that's what you want to do, is try to figure out what you can get away with putting on that spool and stuff. And sometimes you can use the same reel for different purposes.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to
Mm-hmm.
like swap out the line and the rod,
Right.
and bada bing.
And boom, you're good.
Yep.
Nice. One thing I couldn't find before, as we wrap up here, Tim, one thing I couldn't find anything that I feel like we talked about more when I was getting my gear that I currently have is the bearing count. Now, we'll talk about ratios later when we can get into ratios, or ratio will become a thing. So I don't want to go into ratios, I don't think, unless we find ourselves here with more time, but bearings specifically, because I felt like there was a bearing number or a count or something like that, and then that inherently translated to quality, or I don't know, expensive.
For the most part, yeah.
So
Yeah,
what is it even? Because I tried to find online. I was like trying to use filters on some. I'm not going to name any names, but some pretty good places for going and getting fishing gear online, and I couldn't find bearing as like a filter. And for me, again, just going back to when I was getting my gear, it was like, oh, well, you shouldn't get less than a 4 bearing or something like that. And I was just like, I couldn't even filter that last when I was
yeah.
looking it up.
Well, because when you're talking about like four bearings and stuff, like those are pretty low on the count. I
Okay.
believe that our presidents are 8.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, and it's just a deal with smoothness.
Okay.
And then there's I believe there's even an anti-reverse bearing, and there's another like bearing. Like it's really just quality. But I wouldn't worry about the bearing count so much. More
Okay.
so, just get out there and check out reviews and stuff.
Okay.
Because especially when you're looking at like baitcaster reels have more of a discrepancy in them,
Mm-hmm.
because there's like 10, 11, 12,
Mm-hmm.
13 out there.
Okay.
And then Shimano is notorious for having far less than everybody else, but it doesn't
Oh.
matter because of the quality that they use and everything, and the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that they use. It's still really nice,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just as expensive as all the other ones. And you look at the bearings and you're just like, what? Why is that only an
Oh.
8 bearing system when I'm looking
Right.
at 12 at this other company? And it's just
Right.
like, it's just because it's not necessarily necessary because of the quality of like what you make out there too. I think some of them
Right.
have like, there's certain manufacturers that have like delved into like ceramic bearings.
Oh.
And
Sure. Sure.
I don't know anything about those. I don't have any of that stuff, but like mine, this one here is a 10 bearing. You
Okay.
can see that it says 10 bearing. So like, that's, you're getting in the higher end stuff for the most part. When you're
Yep.
looking at 10 bearings, 8 is up there.
Okay.
I believe my micro guide one is like a 6 bearing, which is pretty
Okay.
good for how small that is.
Well, yeah, that was the
This
other
one, this one
question
here
that
is
I thought
like,
of. Yeah.
I don't know. This one might be like 3 or 4, 2 maybe. It really matters in the smoothness, but that's where like when you're talking ice fishing, it's not necessarily needed because you're
Okay.
not worried about like casting out and reeling in and making sure that you're working the bait properly. It's just you drop the bail or you open the bail, you let it fall down,
Right. Right.
and then, but it's like it's the difference too. Like This is probably aluminum, this bale.
Okay.
So again, it probably won't rust. Maybe it'll
Right.
corrode over time or whatever. But
Sure.
like when you start talking more money and stuff, like this is a titanium bale.
Oh boy.
So then, then you start getting into the different metals and the different alloys. And when you,
Right.
start messing with all that other stuff, it makes things lighter. It makes things stronger. It
Yep.
makes things less corrosion resistance.
Yep. And therefore
Hopefully.
smoother too, right? Like it's just going to work.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to work it better just because of not necessarily being 13 bearings or whatever, but
Right.
because that they used a better metal in those 8 bearings. That it is. Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Anything else you want to throw in here on the spinning reel topic that I
N-
couldn't think of?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I hope that helps people kind of,
I hope so
clarify
too.
that there's the different sizes and, the different um capacities
Mhm,
is what you really want to be looking into. But for the most part, I'd say just like get out there and do your research if you want to make sure that you're getting a good one. You
Sure.
know,
Sure.
more money
Yeah.
doesn't always mean better just because of whatever. I'll be
Sure.
100% honest with you. This reel right here retails for like 130 or 140. Not worth it. It's not. It's a very nice reel, but
Yeah.
that price isn't worth it.
Sure.
But that's why you got to shop for those bargains because I got this shit for 60.
And
And
it's
for
totally worth that.
$60, this is definitely worth it. This is a high end reel for 60 bucks. But the problem is it just gets into like there's different gear ratios too. Like this is a 6.0 to 1. And
Uh-huh.
because the gear ratio is higher, it actually makes it a little bit harder to crank. You have to
Oh.
use more force because the gear ratio is higher. When a gear ratio is lower, it makes it easier to crank even when you're fighting the fish and stuff.
Oh.
So it's just not
Yeah.
it's nothing a big deal.
Right.
It's just that like if I would have paid 100, I don't think it's as smooth as it could be either. And
Sure.
that's one of those things like with this is a 10 bearing system and this is
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
pretty smooth reel. But you put
Mhm.
this up against the Shimano that has less bearings, I bet that one feels smoother. It's
Yeah.
just one of those things, and that's why some of these reels don't ever drop price. So sometimes when you see a good deal,
Gotcha.
do your research. That's what I did. I got
Right.
on and I researched this one up,
Yeah.
and everybody was talking it up like this is a great reel, even when they were paying $140. And you're just like,
Right.
well, if you're happy with it at 140, I'm gonna love it at 60.
Right, for sure.
So just that's my biggest piece of advice is just do your research. Don't rush into anything. But if it's
Or base it on anything, like I was
right,
thinking there, like, don't just jump into bearings or, like, this
right,
specific size or anything like that. It's like, what do you really want? Look at the reel. It will tell you what kind of line you can use and stuff like that. Like, all of that it's kind of there.
right.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what kind of line, it's just more research. Try to figure out exactly what you're
Right, for
going
sure.
for. If anybody's listening to this right now and you're just like, well, what kind of line? Like, what am I doing? Just hit us up on any of the socials we were talking about. I'll help
Right.
you. I'll tell you
Yeah.
what's up.
Yeah.
And one thing I would say too is like if you're going for ice fishing and stuff, that one, don't worry about it. I wouldn't be too picky. Like
Right, right, right.
there's
You're not
definitely
doing a
high,
lot of work in
yeah,
the
there's definitely high end stuff that you can get into and stuff. But when you're looking at it and you see like a rod and reel combo that's like $30 and you're like, oh, I don't know if I should buy this. That one's more like check out that reel. You know,
Mm,
the biggest part for a reel when you're talking ice fishing is to make sure that the drag works.
right,
Because that's the only thing is that like if the fish wants to run, you got to let it run. There's nothing you can do.
right.
So
So make sure it
that's
has a decent drag on it, and it's cool.
yep,
Nice.
exactly. And most of them have a pretty decent drag. It's like as long as it's not.
Right.
That's one of the things where it's like make sure that it's working. If it's old and is junky and there's anything rusting and the parts aren't moving like they should be,
Right.
That might be the difference between a shitty day and a great day.
Yeah, man. Good point. Okay, let's get into the random take where we are going to talk about indie entertainment, going indie. Basically, you had quickly mentioned this thing, Steve-O podcast with Dane Cook in it, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go check that out. And then it just sparked my brain with like where things are with us. It was cool, so I just wanted to bring it up in the podcast and talk about it. So that's what we're gonna go do now. Hang in there. We're gonna take a break, and we're gonna jump into that shit. Here we go.
Yep.
Welcome to the break, friends and family. This is a ad. It is officially an ad for Monster Bass, and that is realaf.tv/monsterbass. That's right, realaf.tv/monsterbass is an URL that you can follow to help out the Real AF TV podcast. If you go to realaf.tv/monsterbass, that lets Monster Bass know that we from the Real AF TV podcast sent you, and this is where I pass the ball over to Tim to actually talk about what Monster Bass is.
I got the rock. All right. So Monster Bass is a subscription website that is awesome. They set you up with a bunch of good gear. If you're a new fisherman, they're going to hook you up with a bunch of stuff that you know works because it's curated by a bunch of fishermen who know what catch fish. And if you're a seasoned angler, they have a lot of cool stuff. I'm getting baits that I don't normally like see. There's baits from different companies and stuff, and some of them are super cool. But just so you give a little visual here and give you an understanding of what things look like, this is what you're getting. You order a box, it comes with a bag, but the bag is dope. Has like a little, it says contents right here. You can write on it, zipper bag, nice clear bag, so you can put all your stuff in there and get it all situated. And some of the baits, like it comes with the terminal tackle too. So like if you are a new fisherman and you're trying to get things set up, don't worry, they're gonna hook you up. So in a bag, like here's a couple of different things. KVD perfect plastic. These are worms that are set up that will work for like a drop shot or just a regular, you can put it on a Texas rig, you can just fish it weightless. Some more worms from X Zone. Like if you're wondering, are they all brands I've never heard of? No, X Zone, Strike King, super popular.
Well, KVD. I mean, come on.
Yeah, right. KVD. Got
Mustad. You know that.
Exactly. Got Mustad worm hooks. So they're setting you up with the worm hooks. Monster Bass has some of their own stuff. So these are wide gap worm hooks that work with those. They're setting you up with like creature baits. These are like a jig trailer, or you can Texas rig these as well. And they set you up with a jig. There's a Monster Bass jig for you that you can put that on. Or you can put it on like these are just says terminal tackle. I don't even know what they would call these ones. But it's like it's a tungsten like Ned jig head, but it has like a wide gap hook on it. So these are a little bit unique. But you could fish this with that creature bait. You could fish this with these worms. You could fish pretty much everything you want.
Yeah, nice.
Setting you up with top water. There's a buzz bait. They got the bass popper. So we're covering all the different things. This is one of Monster Bass's own baits.
Nice.
Cool colors and stuff.
Yeah.
Rick Clun spinner bait. Rick Clun is a famous fisherman. They hook you up with stickers. And then when I was talking about, like baits that seasoned fishermen, I don't have any stick baits like this that walk the dog. This thing sits like this in the water, and when you fish it,
explain that for the audio listener. It goes vertical from the tail.
It sits like vertical almost, like up and down, and when you start working it, it does the walk the dog type action, but it doesn't glide as far, it doesn't move as far, so it kind of stays put and stuff. Nice. So yeah, man, they're covering all zones, and that's just one bag. Like that's the contents of what you would get in one bag, and all that stuff is going to cost you way more if you buy it individually at a store. So it's a great deal. Plus they're setting you up with cool stuff. If you're a new fisherman, seasoned fisherman, get you some Monster Bass. They're going to hook you up right.
Yeah, for sure. That's realaf.tv/monsterbass. They'll get you over to the Monster Bass website, but it'll let you know that we sent you from the Real AF TV podcast, and that'll get a little kickback for us. Help us out. by going to realaf.tv/monsterbass. And, of course, don't forget about patreon.com. Patreon.com/realaftv. Remember, Real Like Fish and Reel, where we are set up to have you come over and join the community that is the Real AF TV community, sort of a fisher community, this combo community that we're trying. We think we have a unique perspective on fishing, from me being a geeky person, Tim being the fisherman, but also Tim being into video games, me being into video games. Like, you don't see a lot of that sort of generational representation in fishing, I think. Is that a weird way to put it, Tim?
No, I like it.
Okay.
And diversity.
Yeah.
We are diverse, generational, gapping fisher geeks.
Hopefully that's what we're building. And if you go over to Real AF TV, realaf.tv, you will see the link to the Patreon page. That'll bring you over there. That's the best way to support the Real AF TV podcast directly, and also the Real AF TV YouTube channel, of course, directly. We're trying to do more videos. We're doing a lot more videos. We got some videos content in the tank, and there's also the ability to get exclusive Patreon created content. If you go to patreon.com/realaftv, you will see the different tiers that you can become a patron of.
Yes.
And, we will start creating exclusive content, we'll say.
That's right. Yep.
So there it is. The best way to support the podcast directly is realaf.tv. Find the Patreon link right there on the homepage. Click on that. Give us a couple bucks a month. Hey, subscribe for 1 month. Hang out for a minute. Check out what we already got on there and take off. That'd be cool too. But don't forget, we're going to keep keeping the podcast free.
That's right. Keeping the podcast free to YouTube. If you could like and subscribe on any of those, that would also help us a great deal. But the Patreon is definitely the best way to go about it.
That's right. Welcome back to the Real AF TV podcast, a show about fishing random takes from the land of 10,000 lakes. This is the random take. Tim, we're going to talk about indie entertainment. I don't know what the right word is right now for it, but the idea of breaking away, or a new entertainment industry being developed now that is not just stuck behind Disney and Discovery Plus, which is back to our last podcast.
Yeah, which is everything.
They own everything, it seems like.
It definitely does.
And so, but I can't remember if you brought it up in that podcast or not. I didn't bring it, back I didn't go back and review it for this, and I just can't remember it in this very moment. But you had said something like, "Oh yeah, Dane Cook did this podcast with Steve-O," and I went and watched it. It was super bitchin' to hear him how he basically is an indie comedian. Pretty much has been the whole time.
Pretty much has been like self-promoted and all that good stuff, and then kind of forced into the whole, like, I gotta make this work, because of his brother being a piece of shit. So for those of you that don't know, like, real quick recap, Dane's brother like basically stole all of his shit from him, and then he had to go out there and kind of be on his own, and he took the money that he did have left and he went and rented out his own arena, like, to do his show 100% on his own. Where he's just like, I'm in charge, I'm doing this, I'm running it. And it's like, I get what you're saying. It's like, I don't know if indie's the right word. It's just kind of like self-promotion. Like, that's what everybody does. All the new stand-up stuff out there is like everybody's just putting it on YouTube for everybody to watch. It used to be like, how do I get this? What do you got it on? Is it HBO, Showtime? Like, where do I have to go? Netflix? What do I got to do to get this?
Right.
And they're just like, it's free for everyone on YouTube now. And you go, oh, damn. Okay. That's cool. And it's because some of the stuff, I think they want to sell it to Netflix, but there's still all these executives that are just like, I don't know if we need, and then they just like, well, then screw you. I'm going to put it out there for myself.
Right.
And they'll get millions of views and stuff. And the big thing for the comedians is that they're all traveling. So it's
Right.
just promotion for their shows, which is where they're making the most of their money anyways.
Right. Exactly. And that's what I meant by like indie, is that they're doing this on their own because they're still in control.
Right.
Where this is what we, where we kind of went with it before with the talking about Cartoon Network and stuff like that last podcast, was they still, what I mean by indie is like completely in control of what gets put out there. And
Yeah.
that is sort of the big thing, is like these comedians who just drop their shit on YouTube. That's all them. That's
Right.
just their straight up comedy. There were no notes from some dipshit that just was like, oh, well, I can't put that on HBO. You can put fucking anything on HBO.
Right. But there are definitely people that are just like, it's not even like you can't, it's just them having their 2 cents. I've heard a bunch of comedians talk about it where like these producers have to go in and say something, because if they don't, the fuck are they there for? You know? and the thing is like the producer should almost just be there to just be kind of like, we're here to make sure everything goes smoothly, that it's getting to where it needs to go. I'm the one telling this person that it needs to go here and doing that. They're almost like promoters in a sense. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what you should be there for. Or the producer to
Right.
be like sound quality or stuff like that. To just be like, hey, in this
Right.
part we couldn't really hear you, or that kind of stuff
Right.
is what
Right.
you should be doing. And instead, they're always just like, I don't know if you should do that joke. I think maybe if you could make that joke about like, if we could involve, you had that one joke that was about a Mexican guy. Could he be like a black guy? And then also like the joke like ties in like some Asian people or whatever. And you're like, no, it's a true story about a guy from Mexico.
Right.
What are we doing here?
Right.
Just stupid shit like that, where they always
Right.
got to put in their 2 cents for no reason.
Yep. Yeah,
Oh,
for sure. And like that is the thing too with that got this going to me, is because I've been doing sort of this like indie production stuff for quite a while now. And it is just, it's whatever works. Like I have people around me that have helped me work on it, or that I've completely just been, it's been a tag team, or a 3 or 4 or 5 team thing that is just us giving each other feedback, right? There's this like tight team of like, we give each other feedback. We know what we're
sure.
making. We know what the audience wants to see. And so
Yep.
we are all that is needed to make this thing good, because
Yeah.
we know what the audience is like. We are the fucking audience. And I
Yeah,
feel
for
like
sure.
that's what the comedians are doing and going through
Yeah.
all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
And
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you really hear it when they start talking about going into shows. Like the
Oh yeah.
TV shows are like where, they'll be like, oh, I had an idea for a sitcom or a TV show or whatever, and it could be
Yeah.
really funny, except for
Right.
all these people got to come in and put their stuff. So then you hear them going about like making it 100% on their own as well, where they're
Yeah.
just like, well, because that's where it comes in, is like, to fund a show like that, you're talking like astronomical amounts of money
Right.
for almost like seemingly no reason. Like, I
Right.
gotta pay these people, I gotta pay these people, I gotta pay this person, I
Mhm.
gotta pay somebody to bring in food for all these people, I gotta have all
Right.
this, and it's like everything adds up.
Right.
So you got these studios that are just funding the thing, and because they're funding it, then they gotta stick their nose in it when they just should be like, you're the
Go make
creative
the
genius
thing.
here. Yeah, you're the creative genius. I'm
Right.
the money.
Right.
Here's the money. You
Right.
create. And
Yeah.
instead, they're just like, you're the creative genius. I have the money. I'm going to tell you what to do because it's my money. And
Right.
it's like, well, what the?
Yeah.
If you could do this, then you would do this. But you can't. That's why you're paying me to.
Right.
Just give me your money and let's do
And
this
you
thing.
go sell it, like you go make money off of it. All I
Yeah.
wanted was the money to get the thing going and get my own salary out of it and my crew's
Right.
salary out of it, and like that's where I make my money.
Yep.
you're here to make it happen in the first place. Now you can go make more money off of it. Like, how come that relationship can't just exist?
I know, but all the time you hear somebody doing all this different stuff where they got to put it in there, and just silly stuff all the time with these people where they got to just be like, I don't think that's going to work. Just like, like Evanescence's first big track
Yeah.
where they had that like dude from 12 Stone or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I know.
people don't know that you got Evanescence is just like, wake me up inside, and the 12 Stone guy is just like, I can't wake up. He
Yeah.
comes in, he
Yep.
says his part or whatever.
Yep.
That guy is only in that song because the producers didn't think that a female vocalist could cut it in a rock group. So they put a male in that song to be
Really?
able to be like, oh, it's like a man and a woman and they're singing and stuff. So
Right.
like it was only a one-sided conversation. And
Oh
then
my.
it's just like, oh, you thought like we had to do this because you didn't think it. How many people know Evanescence? Who
Right.
the fuck knows 12 Stone?
Yeah.
What is this
Whoever the
guy?
fuck that guy is anymore.
That
Right.
guy's a nobody. He was a nobody when he got put in that song. He's a nobody now. And Amy Lee is a certified rock star.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just like these people got to be putting in their 2 cents all the time. And it's just stupid to just be like, oh, dude, oh, it's a chick? A chick? Because that's what you get in the rock side of things. They just, oh, Jesus, I
Right.
almost
Right.
knocked over the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like,
You stayed in one place, and then your mic and your camera started to go. It was like, oh shit, what just
my
happened?
foot like hooked the table, and this is just a folding table, and I feel like I almost folded in the thing. Like, how good would that have been? The whole thing.
Whole thing just collapses, and we're
As
just
I'm
like, well, there's a 10-minute random take. We gotta go
Yeah,
because
and then you
Tim's out
could
of order.
yeah, you cut that part and you put it on the internet, and it's perfect timing because nobody knows out of context. I'm just sitting there going, a chick, a chick.
Just
Damn.
and then
Oh, man.
oh,
But
that's
yeah,
so
dude,
good.
it's crazy. It's really cool to see how many different people are out there doing their own thing now, and
Yeah.
how everybody's realizing that you can. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
there's quite a few people that can't.
Yeah.
If
For
you're
sure.
talking about making your own TV show, like if I had a really good idea for a TV show and I pitched it to somebody,
Yeah.
there's no way I could just be like, I can do this without you, because for sure I can't. I would need
Right.
somebody to fund
Right.
it.
Yeah.
But these
Yep.
people that are making their money, once they got their money, then they get to do whatever they want. So it's really cool to
Yeah.
see this whole new wave of people basically being able to, and
Take full
especially in the,
control over their
yeah,
creative destiny is like the
especially
way
in
I
this
look at it.
world of like cancel culture and stuff,
Right.
where there's these people trying to say you can't do this and stuff because they said one thing that was offensive. They're comics, that's what it is. A lot of
Right.
these people, or
Yeah.
they're artists, they're musicians, they're saying stuff, and they say something that's a little bit offensive, but
Yeah.
and then somebody just wants to like say we can't let them do any of this stuff anymore, and then they're just like, you can't really stop me. Like, I'm independent. Like, everything that's coming out, that's all me, and I'm gonna keep doing it, and nobody can tell me no.
Right.
And people
Right.
are gonna keep consuming it. So sorry.
So, you just don't
Yeah.
get any more of my shit.
Right.
Like, and it's not to completely shit on, like, I don't want to say old entertainment either. That's not the way, but like to shit on the fact that there are platforms out there to get exposure and stuff like that. Because man, if Sirius XM came to us and was just like, "Hey, we want to pay you to do a fishing
Oh, for
show,"
sure.
I'd be like, "Yeah, we're not going to do the Real AF TV podcast, but like we could do a different version. We can come up with a different show. What are you thinking?" Like, I'd do
Yeah.
that. Fucking
Oh,
A.
for sure. Like, I would listen to people, and I think that the old school style of stuff still works too, as long as people aren't just sticking their nose in it.
Yeah.
When it's that kind of
Right.
a thing where it's just like, you fish, we would like to make a fishing show with you. Do you have any ideas? And then we just go, yeah, I got a bunch of ideas,
Yeah.
man. I could make like, let's do this.
Yeah. Like
And then,
how many? You just tell me how many shows you want. we got this. Like that, right? Because it would also
Right.
be super sick to be on a platform like, Netflix to get elevated, because
Well, for
those are
sure.
the two dynamics here that I kind of wanted to bring up, and we'll get more into comedy again because of this. Is like there's people like me and you who are putting a little bit of money towards a thing to do a thing, to start creating and start like getting our chops behind the mic and in front of the camera and all this stuff, because we just want to talk about this stuff, right? Like we just want to
Mm-hmm.
do it. And so there's us, like, very low barrier coming in this with nothing, not even doing ads on, YouTube. We're not even running ads on YouTube, or not even running Twitter ads at the moment, you know, where then you have these people like Tom Segura, who's built a whole network off of a whole podcast network off of money that he's made
Yeah.
prior doing specials for bigger platforms. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep. Yep.
And so now he's got that money, just like Dane Cook did, right? He's got that money to build a thing, and now that thing is getting huge and making money back, and
Right.
and stuff like that. So
Yep.
there's these two sides of it where it's just like he doesn't it doesn't seem like Tom wants to make everybody else's shit. He just wants to make more of his shit,
Oh, for sure. He
a
wants some more.
reality,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. There's
Without anybody
actually,
sticking their nose in what he's
right.
doing.
Yeah. There was actually some stuff where he was actually making, I believe it was a sitcom, and he
With
was in the works, and he
his
was,
production company that he's built up?
yeah, he was doing all of it. Well, he had some
Nice.
other people that were kind of on board
Okay.
working with him. And it got to the point where they were kind of like trying to stick their nose in it. He just like shut it down. He
Wow.
was like, yeah, no, no. So I don't know if it's going to come out eventually or what, but
Mhm. Mhm.
there was a point where he got to like a pitch meeting, did some stuff, and then it fell through. And it was basically
Wow.
because of like, it became what they initially said it wasn't, you know, where it
Oh,
was like,
yeah.
oh, we'll be able to do it if, you know, do it in
Mhm.
like this amount of time. And it's kind of that crap that like Hollywood does, or like any, I feel like I'm having it at my workplace, and I'm sure other people can relate too, where you
Mhm.
get, you're going to the job, and then they're, like, what are what am I expected to do basically? And you're like, well,
Yep.
here's your duties, this and that and this thing, and you're like, okay, I can do that. They're like, and we, need you to show up for 5 days a week, and you're like, perfect, that's awesome. And then all of a sudden, like, you get the job, and they're just like, oh, now you're gonna work Saturdays, and you're gonna,
Right.
work this, and you're just like, well, I didn't
Yeah.
really sign up for that. Like, this kind
Right.
of the whole reason I took this job is because I wasn't gonna do the Saturday thing anymore.
Right.
And they're just like, yeah, I know, but we kind of like need you and stuff, and it's busy, so like this is just kind of what it is now. And you're just like, oh,
Yep.
whatever. And it's that kind of same thing with the other stuff where they're,
Right.
with Tom and them, it sounded like it was them just kind of putting together a show and being like, I have a podcast, I have touring, I have children, I have all this other stuff. And they're like,
Right.
oh yeah, no worries, like not a lot of time commitment, we'll be able to do it in this amount of time. And then they'll be like, yeah, but we'll just do it in this amount of time. And they just kept saying it like it's no big deal.
Uh-huh.
We
Yeah.
just need
Yeah,
you
yeah.
for like 3 weeks, you know.
Right.
It's just like 4 weeks, or like
Yeah,
five
yeah.
weeks, like 6 weeks. It'd be like 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Definitely no more than 8. And you're like, what? We're over double now. What happened
Right.
here? This is just
Right.
ridiculous.
Like
So
I think you misunderstood what I said the first time
yeah,
then, because
yeah,
now you have blinders on and are completely not listening to me anymore.
yeah.
This is supposed to be my shit.
This is my shit. I told you. Let's do some simple stuff for the people on YouTube. Here's 3, and now we're to that many. We were at this many. Now we're at that many. Do you see the difference here? Like this, you can kind of see me still. This, I'm gone. I'm no longer here.
I am
You've screwed it.
yeah, dude.
You've made it impossible. We can't do this.
Yeah,
Oh man,
dude.
it's just like
So good.
sometimes and it almost like forces the industry and everybody that, like, if you can do it, why wouldn't you do it? Plus, in
Right.
Dane Cook's case and a lot of other people's cases, they are making exponentially more. Like
more.
just
That's the reason, right? Like, that's the
yeah.
reason to go and do it on your own
Yeah.
and be indie. Like, that's kinda why I keep
Uh-huh.
put throwing the indie word around is just be independent. Build your team
Right.
and don't have it be a bloated team or have it be somebody else's money that has a bunch of team over them, right? And all this other stuff that just gets in your way, you be in complete control of it, and
Yeah.
that means you get complete control of the money flow too.
Right. Cuz there's managers and stuff out there too that are just taking their cut of the money, and what are they doing? I mean, it's a tale as old as time, you know? It's crazy. Like you
What's the deal with middle management?
right. You go back to like that's like the big drama in the NWA movie, you know? Like obviously that's a real life, but if you want to use a
Mhm.
resource to get a firsthand kind of what it's like, the artists are out there barely being able to like afford their housing and feed their family and stuff.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, the management is just making money hand over fist. They're
yep,
rich, and the artists that are making like the content everyone is consuming is barely making any money because
yeah,
there's these crooked managers out there making money for doing nothing more but being an asshole and having the ability to walk into a place and just being like, my client is so talented. He's so worth all this money. And they're like, fine, yeah, we'll pay him. We'll pay him.
yep,
Meanwhile, these people don't know that they're not actually paying them. They're just paying this jerk that screamed at everybody.
right.
And now he's getting paid a lot of money
Mhm.
because he's just the middleman that was able to raise his voice.
Right, right.
You
Yeah.
know?
No, I love that you brought that up because I had indie music down or I had music, down because like, that's my shit around Minneapolis, the Rhymesayers has been independent, Doomtree's still independent. I mean, Rhymesayers independent too, but like a lot of the indie scene around, like indie rap scene around Minneapolis has been something that I kind of got myself into as far as like listening and stuff like that. Love it. Hip hop in general, dude, right? Was built on indie, on just like making music, just
For sure.
DJs finding loops, people walking up to the mic on the boombox. Like
Right.
it's so independent. It's so just like ground level, make your own shit.
Right.
And
Yeah.
NWA, Dr. Dre, billionaire now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Billionaire.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it all started from just people like that was another thing where people are trying to tell they basically had to be indie
Yeah.
because back then you had people, saying or they had to be somewhat indie. You had to find
Mhm.
indie to start with, and then once you got
Right.
some people's attention, then the people they just see dollar signs because they see people that are interested.
Right.
A
Right.
lot of times they're not just like I believe in you. It's like I
They see the crowd
believe.
that started following you
Yes,
now.
I believe in the crowd that is following you. So it's that kind of stuff where like NWA comes out and they're fuck the police, and for the most part people are just like uh
Mhm.
oh,
Right.
I
Right.
don't know about that one.
Yep.
And then you just see like this wave of people that relate to what they're saying, and
Yep.
then just that crooked dude is just like, you boys and me, we're going places. And
Right, right, right.
it's
When
just
really he's
crazy.
riding on the top of that crowd that's following them.
Right.
That's what it is. He's just crowd
Exactly.
surfing that wave
Yeah.
of people that's growing
And
behind them.
it's just that like slimy weasel that knows how to just be like, I believe in you. He's just playing the court both sides.
Right.
I believe in you guys. I believe in your talent. I believe in your message. I believe in what you have to say.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I believe in trying to say everything that you want to hear so you can let me go and tell them to give me money so I can give you a small piece of the
Yeah, that's
pie.
like enough that I think will keep you on the hook.
Right.
That's like seriously what it comes down to.
It's just, man.
And
Yeah.
right right now, one of the things that is happening that I've been seeing is I follow the Meat Eater network. Yeah, like, I follow
Mm.
them okay.
Mm-hmm.
They just had the Netflix deal with the main show, the Meat Eater show,
Yeah.
with Steve, and so they did 2 or 3 seasons for Netflix. So
Okay.
Netflix picked up all, I'll just say Netflix picked up like 8 seasons, and then they did, or yeah, they picked up like 6 existing seasons, and then they did, 7, 8, 9 for Netflix, and now it went totally independent. Now, I'm not saying it's not going to come out somewhere else, but they, like, I saw the promo and he's like, just go over to meateater.com and then give us your email address and you can watch the whole 11th season. Like, it's just there.
Nice.
I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa. And just again, this guy just taking control of his content because he knows he
Yeah.
can.
Right.
Like, it, because I believe his business model is about product placement. What
Mm-hmm.
we're
Mm-hmm.
working with, what we're hunting, you can see it. It's all branded. So
Yep. Yep.
good. There we go. There's the
Yeah.
income from it.
Right.
And it's just cool to see it because we focus in on so much that is obvious, I guess, right now, right? Like, we really focus in on comedy, and that's fine. We're probably going to do it again here in just a minute. Focused on music, or we talked about music briefly, which has always had these like indie underground scenes when it comes to hip hop, of course, which is the majority of what I know about.
Sure.
And well, and then there's punk music too, which is always totally, but that they don't even care about money, man. We don't need income. Live off each
Nope.
other.
Yep.
Punk's awesome. But anyways, I didn't mean to go off on a thing. Um, but then now this is what I'm talking about is just like, even like the outdoor network is seeing people peel off. I'm not saying that's where
Yeah.
Steve was before, but like, there's still a barrier to get in to start all this. I mean, these cameras and microphones didn't come for free, just like what we're doing, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
But it's these growing little pockets of specific things, I guess, that are going on right now. You know what I mean? Like, there's
Yeah.
hunting. Okay, bam, there it is. There's your whole channel right there. And that person before had to have, the outdoor network to even do
Right.
it, because where else were you going to put it? And now we have
Yep.
the fucking internet, dude.
Right. Exactly.
With
I mean,
so
it's
many
like
different places.
the podcast, like my entertainment throughout my day at work is podcasts, like all day,
Oh,
every day.
yeah. So when you just mean
Uh,
podcasts in general, like you're just talking about
yeah.
like, boom.
And just
Mhm.
like, I don't have to pay for it. That's the crazy thing.
Right.
People are out there making money and it costs the user, the consumer, nothing for the
Consumer.
most
Yeah.
part.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's all the product. A lot of it's like advertisements and stuff is how you're making your money, or like the product placement. But
Yep.
you think about that stuff and it's like, that's how it's always been.
Yeah.
It's just that there's a middleman
100%.
in there. You think about like Seinfeld back in the day. I remember they're just like talking about how much money Doritos had to pay to like have a bag sitting on the top of Jerry's fridge.
Right.
And it's like Jerry Seinfeld probably didn't get any money from that product placement. That was like
Hmm.
NBC or whatever it was on, was just like, we're putting the bag of Doritos on there. We're making sure that it's in the scene,
Yep.
and they're getting money from Doritos to have it in there.
Yeah. And then they just keep
Yeah,
paying Jerry and his crew,
right. Full
whatever.
disclosure, Doritos is giving me a free bag for saying Doritos 12 times in this podcast episode. So
They said all I had to do was submit a reel
yeah,
of how many times I
and
said
just
it,
like, yeah, 12
and
times equals a
tag them
free
on Twitter.
bag. Yeah. Now I just have to try to figure out which ones. Is it Cool Ranch? Am I going to get spicy nacho?
The
Oh,
flaming
just
hots
the
now.
flaming hots. Yes. That's another. Shh, don't tell them. If I say 5 different kinds, They'll send me a free decoder ring. And oh man.
Yeah, dude. Oh, that's so good. I wanted to go back to definitely just go straight back to the comedy thing too quick because of Bo and what he
Oh
did over
yeah.
the pandemic lockdowns.
Yeah.
That shit was crazy. What was
Yeah,
it
for
called
sure.
again?
Inside.
Inside. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes. So Bo Burnham's Inside.
Yep.
Netflix ended up a Netflix special.
Right.
He had no intention of that.
That's how it goes sometimes. Yeah. There's no that's Chris Stefano. Same thing. If you
Oh,
watch his special, at the very end of the special, he's even talking to the crowd and he's like, I don't know where this is gonna go up. You know, we put it out, I paid for this
yeah.
myself, I did all
That's
this
right.
stuff.
That's right. I
And
watched
he's
that.
like, so we're not gonna, it's gonna be putting up. And then he goes, but Netflix, if you want to buy it, I will sell it to you. And like that's how he ends his thing. And then Netflix bought it from him. And
That's so good, dude.
I've heard him talk about it on his podcast and other stuff where he was literally like went to Netflix and he's like, I mean, yeah, I would love to sell it to you, but it is what it is. Like
There's
you're
no
not.
changing it. Like, I'm gonna give you an
Yeah,
MP4 and you're gonna fucking put it on your network
exactly.
and it's done.
Yeah, and Netflix is cool about it. They're like, no, just even keep the ending, keep the Netflix part. We don't need to edit that out or nothing. They're just like, yeah, we're
Right.
on board.
Yeah.
So Netflix is pretty cool about that. They understand what's
Right.
going on, and that if you try to change stuff and that's the coolest part to me about all this is that
What's that?
like people are starting to get on board and understand that if I do try to change things and I don't listen to the creator, that it's not going to go well for me. And people are going to
Right.
hear, because of the
Mhm.
internet, people are going to hear
Right.
about why things were changed and what didn't go right or why it didn't make it on this platform.
Right.
And then people are going to be like, really? Netflix? What are you doing, Netflix? But they don't
Right.
have to do that with Netflix because Netflix is cool. Netflix has been chill about this and making it work. And,
Right.
some of the other platforms are trying to jump on the same bandwagon. I think they just don't have the same cred. Like it went from,
Right.
I think Comedy Central was really, trying to make it so it's like, this is what you're going to do. This is how things are going to work.
Yeah.
And that did not go over well for them. Their whole operation, like,
Right.
if they didn't have South Park, they would be nothing.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think have you heard that because you listen to a lot of comedy podcasts? I feel like I've heard pieces of that. You've probably heard it more times over
Yeah. I don't
than
want to
I
say
have then,
anything because I'd be misquoting stuff all over the place because I don't
Right.
remember exactly what happened, but it definitely was like Comedy Central was being shitty. They
Yeah.
were trying to be like, you're gonna do what we say.
They were trying to,
And
like, create stand-ups with their idea is what I get from it. Is like, because you're right. Like, you don't want to quote anybody or say anything, but like you've listened to enough comedians and podcasts, and I feel like I've heard rumblings of the same thing. It's like when Comedy Central came on, they wanted to like, here's what a stand-up show is, and just keep recreating that with different people. That's what it sounded like to me. And then people were just like, no, that's not how fucking stand-up works. Like, that's not what
right.
makes stand-up funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it's when you start putting in your 2 cents, it doesn't go well,
Yeah.
They quite possibly could have had a third, fourth, fifth season of the Chappelle Show, but they got pushy and dumb, and
Right.
then Chappelle was just like, no, I have my own money, I don't want to do this anymore, and then just like left.
Right.
And that's why like all the rumors of like him going crazy like went around, because at the time that seemed crazy. Like, you have the most successful show in the world right now and you just walked away from it.
Right.
And they're
Yep.
just like, he's gone crazy. And it's like, no, he had people trying to tell him like, this is what we're gonna do, and he was
Right.
like, no, and that was pretty much the end of it. And then instead of like sticking around and having, you know, the paparazzi mess with him, he like went to Africa or whatever to just be like, I just need some
Right.
time away to
Yeah.
get away from all this shit.
Right.
And then obviously when you leave the biggest show in the world and go to Africa, they're just like, bro, he's lost his mind. You know, it's like, no, he's rich and he, you know,
And he didn't need all the stress. That's
yeah.
it.
And Africa might sound crazy to, you know, some people,
Right.
but that's, you know, he talked about going, you know, back to the I've heard him refer to it as like the motherland, just kind of like go see like what it, you know, like where his people came from and stuff. And it's
Sure.
like, that's not crazy.
No,
That's just
that's not
like
crazy at all.
seeing your roots, you know,
Yeah.
like
People do that shit all the time on vacation.
oh, right. A rich person went to see where he came from.
Right.
Nuts.
Whoa.
Just,
crazy. Am I right?
That guy's nuts. You know, it's like if I went to Germany, people wouldn't just be like, "The fuck, this guy lost his goddamn mind." But it'd be fine.
Right.
But I don't know. Apparently, when you're a successful artist, then you're
Right.
crazy for doing
Yeah.
that.
Exactly. And it's funny too that you bring that up, because yeah, if it wasn't for South Park, you know, Comedy Central wouldn't have made it through. That's obvious. Like that's just so obvious. And they got away with fucking everything and anything. In
Right.
fact, they're still basically independent. They just so happen to create a show that goes on to Comedy Central. Like
Right.
they took a boatload of money from different streaming services, and they still have the right to just put it on southparkstudios.com, which they have complete control over. Like
Right.
it's
And
fucking wild.
I think
And they're
that
like,
one,
I don't know, just because it's like little kids and
right.
animation.
Well, and I think that's another reason, like, that one was almost the opposite side of things, where instead of just being like, I think it goes back to almost like that like the NWA producer,
Right. Yep.
where instead of being like, I'm going to tell you what to do, is like, I see the insanity that you're bringing to the table. I see the offensiveness. I see everything it is. And we don't want anybody to think we had any part in making this show. we just want to ride your coattails and make money with you. So we will fund you, and then it's all on you. Whatever, anything that gets said is
Anything.
your fault, not ours.
You.
I didn't tell them to change anything. Did you? No, not me. No.
Mm-mm.
That was
Nope.
on them.
That was them.
Yeah.
Just pointing in every direction to fucking make sure that when Tom Cruise ends up popping up in South Park, that those execs had nothing to do with that. No, I don't know. They just handed me the show 10 hours before it was supposed to go live. And, you know, they're supposed to submit anything 24 hours before. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't say no. I had to let it go. Like, just,
Yeah.
you can hear the rant of like, what was I supposed to do?
Right. I don't. That's and then they lucked out and it got to a couple of seasons and then nobody cares anymore.
Right.
Because they're like, did you hear what they said? So and then they go, it's South Park.
Right. Yep.
And they go, yeah, good point. You know, that's all you have to say. They're allowed to say the most offensive shit ever. Like there's the stuff that everybody else has been canceled for. Yep. They've done time and time again, and it's fine because it's South Park.
Yep.
and then you hear like references to it all the time, but for some reason people are still offended by everything. You know, like it's crazy. And you know, Tom McDonald is one of like known as being one of the most offensive rappers out there, just because there's a lot of people that don't like the message he's saying.
Okay.
I've listened to him. I don't find any of it offensive. I can understand how some people get offended,
Sure.
he's definitely like a Christian dude who has the, very right wing,
Mm.
like,
Mhm.
um,
Point of view.
yeah, like not super outspoken in his music, but
Mhm.
that he's like pro life for the most part,
Mhm.
but it might be like pro choice too. I don't know. He's just had some lines in his music
Mhm.
where it's almost like he's making a point, not really telling you
Ah,
exactly how he feels, you
gotcha.
know?
Yeah.
But
Like he's surfing that line between entertainer and like making a point in a way.
right.
And then people hear it and take it.
Yeah.
They interpret it like
Well,
literally, or they interpret it their way to
right.
say that he's offending me, sort of.
Well, yeah, it's just like he's making a point, and he's not necessarily saying like this is the way you need to think, or this is the way. He's just like, I know that there's one line that he said in a song that was, bacteria is life on Mars, but a heartbeat isn't life on Earth. And then he just goes, weird. Like it's just
Yeah.
one of
Okay.
those, just making a point basically from
Right.
my, and like, your opinion's your opinion. It's freedom of speech. Even if you don't agree with it, like that's just what he thinks and it's whatever. But,
Yeah. It
if
was an
you're offended
observation
by,
that he made. Like, I mean, that's the
right.
way I see it. It's just like
Yeah.
that's
That's
one
how
guy's
I,
observation, just
yeah.
bringing it up the
Right.
way he sees it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
a lot of his music is just talking about how people are stupid and stuff. It's just the way they act and like the whole cancel culture. And I think he almost plays into it because people want to cancel him and there's nothing they can do about it because he's 100% independent.
Right. Yep.
He's insanely wealthy because of it. And
Sure.
they can't stop him because it's like his crew is like 5 people
Right.
and there's nobody outside of that. So it's like you can't
Yep.
really do anything to stop this music. But the
Yep.
point that I was making up, or that I was bringing up, was he even points out South Park in the um one of his songs where he's talking about how everybody's soft basically,
Mhm.
and he says like, we all grew up watching South Park, how were we offended, and he throws it out and he's like, it's such a good point in that song to be
Right.
like, everybody loves the most offensive show that's, I mean,
That's been
arguably the
around for
most
20
offensive
something.
show that's ever been made.
Right.
And for some reason, you're not allowed to say like half of the stuff that is said on that show anyplace else,
Right.
or they'll cancel you and they'll come after
Right.
your job.
Right.
You have kids, you have a family to feed, and they'll try to take away your job because you said something.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the biggest part of the whole indie thing, is that there were certain parts of in time where, because everything else was backed by people above you, and they're just
Sure.
like,
Sure.
there's like people picketing in the streets, and we're scared that
Yep.
this is going to affect our paychecks, so we're going to have to let you go,
Right. Right.
and I think, Jesus Christ, I almost did it again.
The whole thing shifted again. You stayed stationary. It's a fucking wild effect. But yeah, no, that's exactly I get exactly where you're going with that, and that is like that is the you know the gift on one hand of going independent and being able to just do the shit on your own, and then the curses on the other is if the internet goes sideways on you, fucking you know you're cut off. But not so now it's a war of these two crowds instead of just one person over your head, right? They're like,
Right.
not war of
Yeah.
two crowds, that's not the right
Yeah.
way to put it, but like you piss off these people, but these people over here that are still with you are like, yeah, it's fine.
Right.
Like you guys over there are just thinking about it wrong, or you don't think about that the same way we do. So I don't know. Here's some more money. Your record was dope.
Right, right,
You
right.
know?
Yeah. Yep. It's all about just like getting that crowd, getting people on your side, and once you have fans, as long as you're not alienating your fans or
Right.
pushing it too far. Obviously, there's a
Yeah.
certain point where, you're gonna
Yeah.
you're gonna there's certain things you definitely can't get away with when you're just being like
Well, you
and
can't reinvent yourself, I think, right? Like, and I no, reinvent's the wrong word, but you can't just like flip it on them.
right, you can't flip it
You
on him. You definitely can't just be like get like the whole woke mob on your side and just be like super left wing and then just all of a sudden just be like, I am as right as it gets.
Yeah.
Ah! And then they're just like, what? Like all
Right.
of your fans are the opposite of that.
Right.
It's just that's not going to work.
Yeah.
A- And I
But
think
that's the thing about being independent, right? Is like you would never. Why would you ever do that? Because if you're being independent, you're being true to yourself. If you're making a creation that you truly believe in, then like
yeah,
then you just keep believing that. I think that's
right.
what it comes down to. Is like
Yeah.
just believe it.
And also, I feel like you should just make your whatever your creative stuff is, just be creative, you know.
Right. Right.
Anybody out there that's out, your whole existence is the YouTube videos that you're out there making because you're one side political extremist. Like, ugh,
Yeah. Or
I hate
chasing
all
that
those
hot
people.
thing at the moment. I mean, obviously the political thing is like, always
Right.
wavering around, but like if you're always just chasing the thing, right? Like that's what I
Yeah.
think independent entertainment right now is so fun to be in
Yeah.
because it is just you being you all the time and creating cool shit. And it's not that it's the same shit every single time, but the tastemakers of old media, just to make it simple here as we're winding up, they always did have to like be chasing a thing where
Mm.
being independent now doesn't mean you have to go chase that thing to find the crowd. You build the crowd and you
Right.
just keep going and that crowd will build more crowd.
Right.
And, that wasn't the way that it worked before. It just didn't work that way. That's all it was.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just like I totally get what you're talking about there. It's 100% like when they're doing the sitcoms, it just felt like, they go, that one's been done. Like
Right.
somebody could have had a super good idea for a sitcom, very well written, all the characters, everything made sense, but it's just like it doesn't fit the narrative.
Right. Yeah.
It just we need to, we have to have this many ethnicities in it now, and we have to have homosexual, and we have to have all this stuff, and it's just like we have to make sure everything fits the bill, where that wasn't always once a thing. Like it's like now
Or
they
even maybe was the thing like that you're talking about now, but like there were 3 CSIs on at one time or 4 or
right,
5
right, right, right,
CSIs
right,
on at
right,
one time, right? So, like, if you were trying to make, a crime TV show and it didn't fit the CSI mold, then
right.
fuck you. Like, get out
Yeah,
of here. We didn't want it. But
yeah,
if you could afford to go do that shit on your own now and build a crowd behind it, and have a different kind of true crime show,
right.
then bam, you can, like that's possible now and it's fucking
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I just want to say too, like if we cut it off right where it sounded, I didn't want all
No,
that.
no.
I didn't want all that to sound bad, but like the point that I was trying to get to,
Yeah.
kind of, like just there's always these talking heads trying to make it so it's like uh, for the point of like a gay person, it's just like back in the day, it was like you try to put a gay person on screen and they're just like, oh no, 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 no,
Right. Right.
that's not happening.
Mhm.
And now like the same people are like, oh, you don't have a gay person on your show? We have to have a gay person,
Right.
And
Yeah.
and in the
Yep.
same thing, it's just like a force thing where the indie stuff is just like gay or not, like whatever the story is that you're creating, that's what
Right.
it should be.
Right.
You shouldn't just be forcing
Right.
the ethnicity or the sexual preference or whatever it is in there to fit this narrative,
just to fit
just
it.
because that's the in thing, you know,
Well,
that's
yeah,
what
because
you
that's what the quote unquote audience wants, right? And like,
right.
what does
Yeah.
audience mean in this
Yeah.
case? Like, they
Exactly.
have this determined thing
Right.
in their mind, and it's like that person creating it is not that person then. I mean,
Right.
like,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like somebody's telling their life story and they're just like, "Do you think we could,
work this
make,
in there for the
this
audience,
yeah,
and they're
yeah,
like,
have
"No, I'm making like I know the audience already. I know the audience that's already out there. You're forcing me into like the broader audience, and I'm shooting for this audience. Like I know where I am.
yeah,
And
or
now you're
they're
forcing things in and making it not as real and not as genuine."
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're just we want to, I know it's your story, but this isn't exactly what the people want. And it's like, well,
Right.
I don't care what the people want. It's my story,
Right.
and now you can't stop those people.
Yeah.
They
All right. We've gone on long enough, Tim. This topic went longer than I expected, but
I
that's
know, I feel like
okay.
it's the same thing a bunch of times. I
I know, me
apologize.
too. Me too.
I got
Nice.
myself in the trap by like saying like gay people and ethnicities, and then you started talking, and I was like, Jesus, I got to get back to that. I can't leave it at that. That sounded real bad, didn't it?
Right. I guess I was like just being your friend for so long. I was like, yeah, I know what he means. And then I wanted to like kind of
Right.
spin a point off of it.
And I don't think I said
Anyways.
anything bad anyways. I was just like, I
No.
really feel the need to clear this up because
Right. Right.
I'm not big enough to independently fund all my creative endeavors. Don't cancel me yet. I'm not. Oh man.
Yeah, for sure, Tim. All right, let's just close out with housekeeping. The Real AFTV podcast is a bi-weekly podcast. Every other Monday we come out, and on our off week we drop the random take, and we drop the fishing topic. Fishing Wednesday, random take Friday. Circle back around, and you got a brand new podcast that Monday. Like and subscribe, all that fun shit. Reviews. What else, Tim?
I love the gays. Oh man. No, if you could, yeah, the whole like and subscribe thing, because it means everything to us. The ratings, it helps,
The
get
algorithm.
other eyes on us.
Yep.
And the more people that see it and the more people that rate and review it and stuff, the more it helps us out. So
That's
we
right.
truly appreciate it. And
trying to build that crowd, trying to stay indie and build that crowd behind us.
And again, if you got any questions about the fishing reels, the size, the things that you're just like, I don't know where to start. I want to try to fish this. I don't even know what kind of fish I want to catch, whatever. There's no stupid questions. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing. And everybody's got to start someplace.
Yeah. Could lead to a whole podcast even.
That's right.
Who knows? Yeah.
Hit us up. I will help you. Unless you're like a pro and you're just like, what can I still help you out.
I'll still talk back to you. I mean,